The controversial legacy of Jesse Helms. Jesse Helms, a five-term U.S. Senator from North Carolina, left behind a legacy that was as polarizing as it was influential. Known for his staunch conservatism, Helms was both admired and reviled for his outspoken views on issues like civil rights, LGBTQ+ rights, and foreign policy. This video delves into 10 of the most scandalous, shocking, and interesting facts about Jesse Helms, offering a glimpse into the man behind the public persona. Fact number 1. Early life and personal foundations. Jesse Alexander Helms Jr. was born on October 18, 1921, in Monroe, North Carolina. Raised in a conservative Baptist household, Helms' upbringing greatly influenced his later political beliefs. His father, a police chief, instilled in him a sense of law and order, which became a cornerstone of Helms' political philosophy. Helms married Dorothy Coble in 1942, and the couple had 3 children, Jane, Charles, and Robert. Despite his later public persona as a staunch traditionalist, those close to him described Helms as a devoted family man who kept his personal life largely out of the public eye. This contrast between his private and public life would later be a point of contention, as many questioned how such a seemingly devoted husband and father could hold such controversial views on family-related policies. Number 2. The Senator No moniker. Jesse Helms earned the nickname Senator No for his unwavering opposition to legislation he deemed contrary to his conservative principles. Throughout his career, he used his power to block numerous bills, including those related to civil rights, education, and healthcare. One of the most notorious examples was his filibuster against the establishment of Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a national holiday in 1983. Helms argued that King had connections to communists, a claim that was widely discredited and viewed as a thinly veiled attempt to undermine the civil rights movement. His obstructionism was often seen as a deliberate attempt to maintain the status quo, earning him both praise and condemnation across the political spectrum. Number 3. The Helms Amendment, a global impact. In 1973, Jesse Helms introduced the Helms Amendment to the Foreign Assistance Act, which prohibited U.S. foreign aid from being used for abortion-related activities. This amendment had far-reaching consequences, particularly in developing countries where U.S. aid was a critical source of funding for healthcare. Critics argued that the Helms Amendment contributed to unsafe abortions and maternal deaths worldwide. Despite the controversy, Helms stood by his decision, claiming it was necessary to prevent American tax dollars from supporting practices he considered morally reprehensible. The amendment remains one of the most enduring and contentious aspects of Helms' legacy, with ongoing debates about its impact on global health. Number 4. Opposition to civil rights legislation. Jesse Helms was an outspoken opponent of civil rights legislation, a stance that made him one of the most controversial figures of his time. He opposed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and numerous other measures aimed at dismantling racial segregation and discrimination. Helms' opposition was not just limited to his votes, he also used his platform to disseminate racially charged rhetoric. In a 1990 campaign ad, Helms aired the infamous hands ad, which showed a pair of white hands crumpling up a job rejection letter, with a voiceover stating that the job was given to a less qualified minority. This ad was widely condemned as racist, but it effectively mobilized Helms' base, ensuring his re-election in a tight race. Number 5. Anti-LGBTQ+ stance and legacy. Helms was one of the most vocal opponents of LGBTQ+ rights in the U.S. Senate. He fought fiercely against AIDS funding, arguing that the disease was a punishment for immoral behavior. In 1987, he led the charge to block funding for the National Endowment for the Arts, citing the support of obscene works, including those that depicted LGBTQ+ themes. Helms was also a key figure in the opposition to same-sex marriage and LGBTQ+ military service, often using inflammatory language to describe these issues. His stance on LGBTQ+ rights was widely criticized by activists and politicians alike, but it also solidified his reputation as a defender of traditional values among his supporters. The phrase, "Jesse Helms hates me," became a symbol of protest against his views, especially within the LGBTQ+ community, appearing on buttons and posters during demonstrations. Number 6. Helms' role in foreign policy and the Cold War. Jesse Helms was a fervent anti-communist, and his foreign policy positions often reflected his desire to combat communism wherever it appeared. He was a strong supporter of U.S. involvement in Latin America during the Cold War, including backing controversial regimes in Chile and Nicaragua. Helms was a vocal supporter of Augusto Pinochet's dictatorship in Chile, which was responsible for numerous human rights abuses. He also played a significant role in U.S. policy toward Cuba, advocating for strict sanctions against Fidel Castro's regime. Helms' hardline stance on communism made him a key figure in shaping U.S. foreign policy during the latter half of the 20th century, but it also drew criticism for supporting authoritarian regimes under the guise of anti-communism. Additionally, Helms staunchly opposed the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, arguing that it would undermine U.S. national security and was a step towards unilateral disarmament. His opposition to the treaty was a significant factor in its failure to gain Senate approval in 1999. Number 7. The clash with Bill Clinton. One of the most publicized feuds in Jesse Helms' career was with President Bill Clinton. Helms, who had a deep-seated animosity toward Clinton's more liberal policies, publicly threatened the president in a 1994 interview. He stated that Clinton better have a bodyguard if he visited North Carolina, a remark that was widely condemned as an implicit threat of violence. The White House demanded an apology, but Helms refused, standing by his comment as a reflection of the intense opposition to Clinton's administration in his state. This incident highlighted the deep political divisions of the time and further cemented Helms' reputation as a combative and unyielding figure. Number 8. The controversial Helms-Burton Act. In 1996, Jesse Helms co-sponsored the Cuban Liberty and Democratic Solidarity Act, better known as the Helms-Burton Act. The legislation aimed to strengthen the U.S. embargo against Cuba by penalizing foreign companies that did business with the island nation. The Helms-Burton Act was highly controversial, with critics arguing that it violated international law and strained relations with U.S. allies. The law also had a significant impact on U.S.-Cuba relations, solidifying the embargo and making it more difficult for future administrations to normalize relations with Havana. Helms viewed the act as a crucial step in pressuring the Cuban government to democratize, but it also became a symbol of his rigid foreign policy approach. Number 9. The 1990 Senate race and racial tensions. The 1990 Senate race between Jesse Helms and his opponent, Harvey Gantt, was one of the most racially charged campaigns in U.S. history. Gantt, an African-American Democrat and former mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, faced a barrage of racially divisive tactics from the Helms campaign. The most infamous was the Hands ad, which played on white voters' fears of losing jobs to minorities due to affirmative action policies. The ad was widely condemned as racist but was effective in galvanizing Helms' base and securing his victory. This campaign remains a stark example of how race can be used as a political weapon in American elections. Number 10. Legacy and controversy after death. Jesse Helms passed away on July 4, 2008, but his legacy continues to be a source of controversy. While some praised him as a defender of conservative values, others condemned him as a symbol of bigotry and intolerance. Helms' name is often invoked in debates over civil rights, LGBTQ+ rights, and U.S. foreign policy, reflecting the lasting impact of his career. His archival papers, housed at the University of North Carolina, have been the subject of ongoing debate, with some arguing that they should be used to educate future generations about the dangers of divisive politics, while others believe they should be viewed as a testament to the complexities of American political history. The phrase, "Jesse Helms hates me," which originated during protests against his policies, encapsulates the enduring divisiveness of his legacy.